Further hostility was aroused when Marie Antoinette built a model village with 8 cottages and a farm in her private grounds. At a time of increasing hardship, the Queen appeared to be frittering away the state's resources.
It was a village where she could pretend that she had no responsibilities and chat with her friends and laugh and have little dances and have picnics and enjoy herself. Of course, little villages like that and natural-looking parks cost a great deal of money to design and build and keep up.
Marie Antoinette seemed to pay no heed to public opinion. In 1783, her portrait by the most fashionable court painter caused a scandal because her dress was considered indecent for a queen.
This dress, called a chemise gown, was a loose shift of linen or muslin, which was based on the shift or the basic item of underwear which women wore. So there was this notion of impropriety to it. But there was a political element and an economic element in this as well. It was seen by critics to be a promotion of non-French fabrics. If it was muslin, it was cotton that was being imported by the British East India Company. Or if it was linen, it might very well have been produced in the Austrian Netherlands.
Marie Antoinette's critics never missed an opportunity to attack the Austrian alliance.
By the 1780s, that Austrian alliance means, above all, that they can see that she is the sister of Joseph II, who from 1780 onwards, when Marie Antoinette and his mother dies, is in sole control of Austrian affairs, and he's proving an international loose cannon. Nobody knows what he's going to do next.
Louis resisted Joseph's persistent attempts to take advantage of the French alliance, but it put a strain on his relationship with Marie Antoinette, who tried to gain his support for her wayward brother. A groundswell of resentment was building against the Queen, who failed to realize she was becoming the scapegoat for the nation's problems. The English had been defeated, but at great cost to the French. The state was on the verge of bankruptcy. A harsh winter the following year brought further suffering for those who bore the brunt of taxation.
The public says the war's over. Why are we still paying? Why is the government still borrowing? Why is it all so expensive? And if it is all expensive, economies should be made at the top.
Unbelievably, in these circumstances, the Queen bought herself another palatial residence at St. Cloud. It only served to strengthen her reputation for extravagance and dangerous independence. The following year, another scandal broke. Marie Antoinette's already battered public image was left in shreds. Central to the affair was a diamond necklace, one of the most expensive ever made. A certain cardinal was eager to ingratiate himself with the Queen. He fell victim to a devious courtesan who used forged letters and impersonation to convince him that Marie Antoinette secretly wanted him to purchase the necklace in her name. When the abuse of the Queen's name was revealed, Marie Antoinette and Louis were furious. They confronted the gullible cardinal, and a few minutes later, he was arrested in the Hall of Mirrors before the whole court. His trial in Paris exposed the damage done by years of criticism. No one believed the Queen was wholly innocent. The terrible truth finally dawned on her. The French public hated their Austrian Queen.
The king, having mishandled the whole affair of the necklace through the way he had the cardinal arrested, mishandled it further by turning over the whole affair to a highly politicized court, which of course saw its chance and used it essentially to attack the Queen and, to a significant degree, the monarchy. For Marie Antoinette, it was a radical disillusion. She had sort of known she was unpopular. She had failed to realize the intensity with which she was hated. It was a genuine, violent hatred. This shook her very deeply.
The cardinal's acquittal was a disaster for the king and queen. Respect for the old order was fading fast. This apparently trivial affair had struck at the heart of the monarchy. In an age before photographs, royal portraits were used as propaganda. After the disastrous affair of the diamond necklace, an attempt was made to restore the image of the queen.
I think the idea was to show her as a stylish woman, because that was obviously an important part of her persona, and at the same time show her as mother to the French people as well as mother to her own children.
The empty crib draped in black refers to the death of the Queen's second daughter, who had survived only a year. But the cynical public, convinced by tales of royal debauchery, saw through this belated attempt to play on their sympathies.
The painting was hung at the yearly painting exhibition in Paris, in the Louvre. People came and looked at it, and instead of saying, "Oh, that's what the Queen is like, she's really a good mother," they simply snickered. As a piece of propaganda, the painting was a total failure.
Marie Antoinette was blamed for every disaster. When the finance minister publicly admitted the terrible condition of the state's finances, the Queen was nicknamed Madame Deficit. Louis attempted to push through radical tax reforms, but the assembly summoned to approve them raised objections, and he was forced to back down. Devastated by his failure, Louis became increasingly depressed and indecisive. It was a major turning point in the balance of power between the king and queen. Marie Antoinette could not win. Faced with Louis's shattered self-confidence, she stepped into the power vacuum at court and found herself accused of emasculating the king and weakening the monarchy itself.
The hatred centering on the Queen dishonored the king himself, who was seen as weak and incompetent, and the monarchy. If the Queen could be so powerful, then there was something wrong with the monarchy itself.
During the severe winter of 1788 to 89, another personal crisis was unfolding at Versailles. Marie Antoinette's eldest son, the heir she had once longed for, was now dying of tuberculosis. By early summer, while the king and queen were distracted with grief for their dead son, the political situation had drifted dangerously out of control. In June, elected members of the Estates General, an ancient representative institution, summoned in desperation by the government, transformed themselves into the National Assembly. In a direct challenge to the king's absolute authority, they swore not to be dissolved until France had a constitution. The Queen was firmly opposed to the idea of a monarchy limited by constitution. She was now on a collision course with the leaders in the Assembly. When the price of bread peaked in mid-July, Paris was on the verge of open revolt. The dismissal of the finance minister, Necker, was the final straw.
It looks from outside like a palace coup by the Queen to put her people in and get rid of the popular hero Necker. And when the news reaches Paris of the fall of Necker, that triggers off a popular explosion against what appears to be a reactionary takeover by the Queen and her circle.
On the 14th of July, the Paris mob rose in revolt. They took the Bastille by storm. This fortress prison held only 7 prisoners, but it was a symbol of despotic rule. Paris was sensing its own power.